Hi and welcome. In this video, I will guide you through all the necessary steps to build the Fantasy Story Creator. So first of all, let me explain what this thing is about. So basically the Fantasy Story Creator is an automation, and all you have to do is filling in 6 fields of text and then clicking a single button. And after a few minutes, a folder of your choice will be filled with movie files, voiceover files that you could then use to build an entertaining video visually supporting your music. Maybe for your demo reel, maybe for social media content or whatever you prefer. And this entire process shouldn't take you longer than 15 minutes. And here's a little example.
Ragnar, a lean thief with piercing green eyes, moved silently through the night. He journeyed into a lost jungle filled with ancient secrets and deadly flora. He discovered an ancient temple overtaken by nature and decoded its secrets. Inside the temple, he navigated narrow passages lit by sconces, seeking hidden treasure. Tullus, an undead gladiator, confronted Ragnar with fiery eyes and a deadly sword. They fought fiercely, with Ragnar's agility matching Tullus's strength. Ragnar defeated Tullus and found a golden sword granting him immense power.
So let's go. First thing we need to talk about is the platforms that we need to make this happen. And our main platform would be make.com. So to keep it simple, basically make.com is the platform that we need to get all the applications work together and build our automation. The next platform is airtable.com that we basically need to put our text information in it and receive the text information that we need to come up and generate the pictures and the video files. So you also have to create an account with OpenAI. Please do not confuse this with the GUI of ChatGPT. We want to have access to the OpenAI platform directly to communicate with Make. Next up, make sure to sign up with Leonardo.ai, and this is a service that we need to generate the pictures but also the movie files. Next up, this step is kind of optional, but if you want to have these voiceover files, make sure to sign up with 11 Labs. As a data hosting service, basically you can use whatever you want. In my example here, I use Google Drive. And if you have this synced up with your desktop, you literally get the generated files directly sent to your hard drive. Before we start getting into all the details and the steps needed to create this, I just quickly want to let you know, if you don't have the time to set this up and directly want to download and import the blueprint of this automation, including all the files and texts needed, just make sure to check the link in the video description. Let's quickly talk about the budget. Airtable you can use for completely free. Make is also available for free. At a certain point, when you want to get past 10,000 actions, you have to upgrade to a $10 plan per month. But until you reach that point, you can really do a lot with it. Leonardo you can also sign up for free. You can test it also for free. Please do not confuse it with one of their paid plans that they offer to access the GUI. You want to sign up for free and hop to the API options that you can see in your account. Then you have to deposit $9 and then you only get charged per API access, meaning per accessed action. The same goes for OpenAI. You can sign up for free and then you have to deposit $5 on their account and then you also only get charged per API access. Google Drive is available for free. And 11 Labs for the voiceovers, of course, is optional, but if you want to go for it, it's round about $5 per month. So all in all, you can get access to all of these platforms for round about $5 per month, up until $30 per month if you want to use all the features excessively. And now let's go. First thing you want to do is get into your Airtable account and hit start from scratch. This will create an untitled base and you can give it some name, Fantasy Story Creator, hit enter. Next up, you want to double click this one here and say, for example, hero name, hit enter. This can stay a single line text, for example, here, because we don't need a lot of text. Next up, we double click this field just in case it doesn't say notes or something else. Make sure that it says hero, description, and that it is a long text. Hit save. Now next up you double click this one and you also turn this into a single line text and give it the description villain name. Then let's do this a little bit different here. Let's click the plus, let's hit long text and also let's name this villain description. Create field, just move it over here. To be honest, it doesn't matter too much if it's like a long text or a single line text because it's not really that much text. So we can leave it at single line text here. Next up, we want to hit this plus again. Let's name this quest, and let's also leave this at single line text. And again, if you feel like you want to put in longer text, you can always double click here and pick anything else. So next up, we want to hit the plus again and name this reward, and then make this a single line text and hit create field again and drag and drop this over here. So generally these are the text fields that you have to fill out to create your story. Nevertheless, we have to create 3 more fields that will generate the hero prompt, the villain prompt, and also the story. So again, we hit this little plus here, say hero prompt, and turn this into a long text, hit create field. Again, hit the plus here, hit villain prompt long text create field, and then hit the plus again and say story and also long text and then create field. Next up, we drag and drop this little status thing over here. We can use that, and if you double click this, you can delete everything except done and click save again. The next very important step for our document here is to hop to your little account icon here and go to Developer Hub, and we have to create a new token for our new sheet. So hit create new token. Now I name this Fantasy Story Creator Tutorial, and then you have to click this little add a scope command, and then you just basically have to fill in everything that is in this list. Once you got this all in here, you say add a base. Then we pick our Fantasy Story Creator and hit create token. Now I don't want to show that, but this token right now, you hit this little copy symbol and hit done. So please keep in mind that this token has been copied to your clipboard. So you just want to paste it in some document so you're not losing it. And then you hit back home and go to your document again. So now we got our document ready. Let's head into the automation. And to do that, you have to sign into Make, then head over to Scenarios. Then you want to create new scenario, and we are ready to go. So things could look a little bit different here. It could be like a violet plus or like this, but all you have to do is click this plus here, and then you start writing Airtable and you pick search records. And if you haven't connected anything, you hit add. Then you go connection type, Airtable token or key. Then you give it a connection name, in our case, Fantasy Story Creator Tut. Then we pick personal access token. And then in this field, you have to put in the personal access token that you generated on Airtable before. So I'm not showing that right now. I'm putting in my personal access token here and then hit save. So once you've saved this, you can pick a base, and then you should see your Fantasy Story Creator. Next up, you pick the table 1. So the next step is to simply select everything that is in here. As a formula, you do the following. Once you click on this field here, you get like these 2 braces, as I think they are called, and then you're just writing in that space done. Then you hit space again. So it's like 2 spaces from the braces and the done, right? And then you just write in equals, and then you write 2 single quotes, right? You don't want to put in like shift and 2, like these double quote, you use the single quotes here. Then you set the limit to 1 because you always want to generate 1 story at a time, and you hit OK. Okay, so just quickly repeat that. You write brace space, then done, space, then the brace again, then you write a space again here, then equal, space again, and 2 single quotes. The reason why we do that is once you generated a story up here and you set this to done, you simply make sure to not recreate any stories that you have done already. Okay, now it is time to log into your OpenAI account. Chances may be that you are still on Docs here, but you just have to hop over to the dashboard. Once you are in here, hop over to API keys and now generate an API key and name it Make. So basically name this key whatever you want, but it's always a good idea to name this for the service you are using it for. Now we hop back to our scenario here, and you can hover over this little half moon and it turns into like this add another module plus symbol. Once you click that, you start writing OpenAI, just in case if you don't see that in the list already. Pick the very first one and then you go to create a completion. Click that, and what you do here, you click the ChatGPT 4o model, then click add message, then you set the role to user. So now we have to define the content of our message here. So I am pasting this in here, and this is what we have to write. You will be given information that is a character name and a brief description. This is the info, and you can see some dummies in here that I have to delete. The first one would be hero name and hero description, and we are picking this from our actual Airtable module over here. So the first thing that you pick is the hero name, then you write a comma, and then you write hero description. Then continuing the text, you will create a fantasy main hero character from given information and convert it into a visually detailed prompt that can be used for picture generation. It should be very detailed and include hairstyle and color, visual attributes, clothing, armor, and weapon. Do not exceed 50 words. I just briefly want to mention this again. If you don't want to type anything or just want to have the blueprint available and all the texts and all the information, you can check out my course, Content Automation. You find the link down in the video description and you're good to go. So let's continue setting this thing up. What is so cool about make.com is whenever you want to connect something with something, you can see that it's slowly pulsating here or vibrating when I hover over this. So you can always see that this is the information that is available from the previous or any other previous module in here. So in our case, if I hover over hero name, you can see that it's from this module. And when I hover over hero description, we also see that it's taken from this module. The next thing that you want to do is hop over to max tokens and you want to put in a 0 simply so that ChatGPT has all the resources available to generate these 50 words. So just going sure that you understand what is going on, because in the beginning all things are a little bit more difficult and then it will all become a little bit easier over time. So whenever we have a hero name in here or a hero description, this is the information that will be forwarded from this Airtable module to this ChatGPT module in here. And then we will use this information that we inputted here into our fantasy story creator sheet, and then this assistant will make use of that information and generate whatever we tell it. So in this case, we tell it from this information, you will create a fantasy main hero character from given information, convert it into a visually detailed prompt, blah, 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 and so on. So now let's continue with the next module here. The next thing you're going to do is you hover over here, click this little plus again, and then you pick Airtable again, and then we say update a record. So what you do here, you pick your base, which is fantasy story creator, then you pick table 1. As a record ID, you can see if I hover over here, you can see this module moving again, and you pick this one. The record ID is basically this entire line here that is needed to build our story, and we want make and all modules connected to know what line we are currently in. Now the next thing we want is this OpenAI assistant generated our hero prompt, and now we want to put this back into the Airtable document. So we said update a record, and what we do here is hop over to this hero prompt line and then put in the result from this OpenAI assistant and hit OK. Okay, so now that should work already. So let's do a little test. Let's save our scenario first, then hop over to our fantasy story creator sheet. So let's put a name in here. Let's name this guy Arlas, and then a description: fighter with long white hair and black steel armor. Now here's a tiny little mistake that I make and that we want to fix before we try out things. What you have to do is hop over to status here, do a double click and name this field done and hit save. What you then have to do is hop in here, because I got an error message and I apologize, but this stuff can be sometimes tidy, but I just want to show you all the details on what is happening so you know kind of like troubleshooting wise what is going on. So because of this field was named status, it couldn't find it because we put done right into the formula. So what we have to do is rename this field to done, because this is the easiest way, and then also make sure to just select all of these output fields, right? So we have them all set up. Now the formula is done. Also, this field is called done, and everything should work all right now. Before we do our little test, I want you to delete everything everything else that is in here. So we just really have like this first line in here, and you see this little plus on the second line. Make sure that there are not like 2, 3 or 4 or 5 lines in here. Now we jump back to our automation and I click run once. And what now happens, it runs through this first module, successfully runs through the second one and also the third. And if we hop back to our sheet here, you can see in the hero prompt that we have a text, and you can expand this cell here by hitting this little button here, and you can see Arlas, a fierce fighter with flowing long white hair, clad in intricate black steel armor adorned with dark runes. His piercing blue eyes emanate strength. He wields a massive double-edged sword with a dragon-edged hilt ready for battle. The armor's gauntlets have sharp claw-like fingers. And there we have our first automatically generated prompt from just a hero name and a hero description. Okay, so now that you understood the basic principle on how that stuff works, let's fully nerd out. Okay, so the next step that we're doing is we're creating another chat completion here. And then we pick the model GPT-4o, we just add a message, say user, and then we apply the following message content. And now we have this little dummy here again that we have to replace. So this is the info, villain name, and also villain description, but we just have to take it from what we generated here. So we take villain name, and you can see this hovering action happening again. Then we write a comma, and then we say villain description, right? So basically this is the same. You will be given this information that is a character name and a brief description. This is the info. You will create a fantasy evil villain from given information and convert it into a visually detailed prompt that can be used for picture generation. It should be very detailed and include hairstyle and color. So basically everything else like the previous one. Visual attributes, clothing, armor, and weapon do not exceed 50 words. And then we say max token 0 and hit OK. Great. So what do we do next is hitting this little plus again. We connect it to another Airtable module, and then we also say update a record. And what we do now is we pick our fantasy story creator base again, and it takes a while loading, then table 1. And what we want to do is using the same ID, but the very first one, right? So you can see right now we have this ID. Technically it's the same, but I just want to make sure that it's the ID from the very first module here that we are searching the records from. Now, next up, we move down to the villain prompt. And since this ChatGPT agent created or generated this villain prompt, this is the result. We have this hovering action happen again, and we click result, and then we simply hit OK. Now we could run a test again, but we are just professionals. We just move on. And now let's hop over to the next one. So we create another OpenAI module here, and we say create a completion. We pick model ChatGPT-4o again. Then we say add message, user, and the message content will be now a little bit more complex. So let me just paste this in here. And if you wonder where I'm taking this from, it took a few weeks to develop this, and I just built this already. I'm recreating this right now, but I just want to create this from scratch with you guys, but I just have to make sure that it works. There may be errors or mistakes happening during this process, and I just want to record this all to show you what can go wrong, but I also want to show you how you can troubleshoot this then, just in case if something happens. So everything that you see here in black is basically dummies from my previous project, but now let's go through the text here. You are a fantasy story writer with 50 years of experience, because why not? Use the following information to write a fantasy story about a hero, the quest, and the reward. So right now I just have to get rid of these dummies, and we have to make sure to put the correct information in here. So the hero is the hero name. Then we have the hero prompt in here. Again, the prompt, not the description. We use the description to build the prompt. Now we want ChatGPT or the OpenAI assistant to know how this hero precisely looks like, right? Now we have the villain in here. We take this villain name, we take the villain prompt, again, not the villain description, but the prompt. And then we have a quest which is this one, and we have a reward, which is this one. We move on with our text here. Your task is to craft a compelling fantasy story using 7 distinct paragraphs. Again, it is very important that the fantasy story is exactly 7 paragraphs long and follows the exact layout as shown below. Paragraph 1 introduces hero name. We just pick this one again here, and if you're unsure what to pick, you can always see if you hover over something, you can see always this hovering action. So paragraph 1 introduces hero name. Paragraph 2, 3, and 4 only focuses on the quest of hero name, describe locations and exploring action. Paragraph 5 introduces villain name from here. And then we say, as for paragraph 6, introduces an action-loaded battle or confrontation between hero name and villain name. Paragraph 7 ends the story and focuses only on the reward and a possible effect or outcome related to it. Do not write any additional information such as title, description, chapter, or commands, but only focus on the story text itself. Please avoid anything with kids, blood, and gore. Each paragraph does not exceed 350 characters. And then max tokens should be set to 0 again here, and then we can hit OK. So now you probably already guessed what will happen. We create another Airtable module here, and we simply say, again, update a record, pick the fantasy story creator base again, table 1. We make sure to pick the ID from the very beginning here. And then what we do is on this story field, we pick the result from here. So basically the entire story that has been generated by this assistant will be moved to the Airtable record, just hitting OK, which is basically this field here. So I think it's now testing time again, and what we have to do before that is we just have to go in and create a villain name. So let's come up with something that is called Gnoll, or whoever that is, I don't know, a tall troll with blue skin. As a quest, we put in exploring the lost pyramid. The reward is Diamond of Life. It's basically all the information that we need. Now let's hop over to our automation and run it. So you can see it's heading through the first module, second one, third, fourth, the fifth one, and now it takes a little bit longer to write the story and then sending the result back to our Airtable document. Okay, so it is done. Let's check this out and let's check out the story that it generated. I don't want to read through all of that, but first of all, I just want to make sure that it's 7 paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very good. And now you can see Arlas stood tall, his long white hair flowing like a river of snow under his black steel armor, intricately designed with silver accents. His piercing blue eyes radiated sheer determination, and so on. And the second paragraph here, or the second chapter, the journey began at dusk at Arlas approached the fabled lost pyramid. Each stone of the ancient structure seemed to whisper secrets of long-forgotten civilizations, blah blah blah. The third one, inside the air grew thicker, filled with the scent of ancient dust and mystery, and so on. So basically it creates this entire story. It then introduces the villain in the 5th chapter here. From the shadows emerged Gnoll, or Null, or however you pronounce it, a towering blue-skinned troll whose eyes glowed red with malevolent intent. His gnarly white hair contrasted sharply with his tattered dark leather armor, which bristled with bone spikes. He hefted a massive Russell bed axe, its blade dripping with ominous dark magic, and so on. The confrontation was inevitable. Null charged his rusty axe, clashing with blah blah blah, and so on. I don't want to waste too much time, but we basically have a full-fledged little fantasy short story generated just by providing 6 fields of text into our document here. So quickly want to mention something at this point here. We are not trying to recreate Hollywood, right? The only thing that we want to do is create some visually entertaining content supporting our music, maybe for our demo reel or creating social content. Now let's continue. Okay, so at this point of the automation, we want to create a Google folder. So again, you hover over here, add another module, then you just looking for the Google module here, and you pick the very first one because you can see this, or you can hit show more, and then you simply go to create a folder. Now, when you do this for the first time, of course, you have to connect it with your account. And then what you do, you hop to My Drive, not shared with me or a Google shared drive. You go to your drive and then you click here to choose your folder. And what I'm doing here, I'm having my make folder where I have all this stuff happening. Then I have the fantasy story creator. This is basically a folder that I already created. And now the new folder's name should always be story of, and then we simply pick the hero name. If you're running this automation, at this point, there will be a new folder created on your Google Drive. And if you have this folder or your Google Drive synced with your desktop, all of the content that is going in there, and this will be later on all the video files and the voiceover files, this stuff will be available on your hard drive directly. And last but not least, we hit OK and we got this set up. So at this point of the automation, we want to split the signal. So right now we want to create a router to do this. And I will also show you another way on how to create or add modules. You can click somewhere here and say add a module, and then you see this plus. We want to create a router, so we just pick this one here, and right now you can see that this is not connected. So if you drag and drop this over here, you can see that it automatically connects. And just in case if this doesn't happen, you can drag and drop this and move close to this module, and then it automatically connects. Now we got this set up. Also, if you want to have things nice and tidy, you can hit this little magic stick here, and then it auto aligns everything. At this point of the automation, it gets a little bit tricky, but no worries, I got you covered. What we want to do next, if you check our fantasy story, it is separated into 7 paragraphs, or let's say 7 chapters. What we want to do now is split this entire story into 7 parts. So each chapter gets processed individually. And this is how we do it. So click this upper plus here and pick an iterator. Now please follow closely, it's not difficult. What we want to do here is click on this white field here, and then you hop over to this little A, and then you hit split. And then you see the following command happening here. This is basically the command that we need to split this entire story into 7 individual chapters. So you click left from the semicolon here, then you hop over back to the star and you pick story. Then you hop right of the semicolon, then you go back to the A and you hit new line and hit OK. So when we check our story again, what this command does is basically every time there is like a new line, it uses this as a command to split our story into 7 individual chapters. So now that we got the command set up to split our chapters, we need to click here, add another module, and right now we pick a router again. And what happens now is basically like a mixing console. If you know how to set up one of these, let's say channel strips, you know how every other of these strips will work. So now let's turn our first chapter into a picture prompt. We click the plus again, hit OpenAI, say create completion, pick the GPT-4o assistant again, we add a message, apply the user role, and then we use the following message. Use the following text, generate a visually detailed picture prompt, and focus on hero name and hero prompt. Do not exceed 300 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. Now the next step is to replace the dummies. Again, you will not see anything here if you don't have any text available, if you just type it. And then what you have to pick here is the value. So if I click value right now, you can see the iterator pulsating again. Click this one here, and then you say generate a visually detailed picture prompt and focus on. And this is the hero name that we pick from here and the hero prompt that we pick from here. That's it. We say max tokens again 0 and click OK. Now the next step is also very important. Just drag and drop this a little bit up here and you see this little wrench tool here. Now you have to click this and you have to set up a filter. And as for the condition, you have to pick bundle order position and on text operators equal to 1 and then hit OK. So just to quickly explain, we set up this filter. So this automation only takes care of the information given from the first chapter. Now let's set up the next module. We click on the plus, then we look for Leonardo. We use the command generate an image. And of course, as with all the other applications, you have to put in your API key, connect your account and all of that stuff. You should be familiar with that process by now. Next up, as a prompt, we basically pick the result from this previous chat completion. So pick the result here. And of course, you can experiment around and use whatever you want. In our case, I have used the Leonardo Kino XL model. As for the number of generated images to generate, we pick 1, then click show advanced settings and then ignore the source, go over to public and hit no because we don't want to publicly show what we created. Now, as for the height and the width, I want to have a 9:16, so basically a portrait picture created. If you want to go 16:9 landscape mode, that is completely up to you. But in my case, I want to have short content generated, so I want to put 1367 in here. And as for the width, I pick 768. Next up, we go to unzoom. No, we set alchemy to yes. Then we pick a contrast ratio of 0.5. You can set this and experiment around with whatever you want. Expanded domain, no. Photoreal, no. Prompt magic, no. Control net, no. As for a preset style, I went with photoreal enabled and cinematic. Guidance dale is set to 7 simply because how strongly the generation should reflect the prompt. 7 is recommended. Then we ignore everything else. We go to NSFW, no. Tiling, no. As for the scheduler, again, you can experiment around. I simply set it to Leonardo and then I hit OK. Again, feel free to experiment around with the models here or whatever settings you want. If you want to have, for example, anime pastel dream going on or specifically cute characters, the Leonardo diffusion engine or pixel art, whatever you want, feel free to find your own style. So next up, we don't want to waste any time and we want to directly convert the AI picture into a motion file. And to do that, we hit the plus here. We click Leonardo AI again and say make an API call. Now, please watch closely. You want to type in /v1/generations -motion -svd. This is the command needed to let Leonardo know that we access the motion algorithm basically. Now you pick post in here. You can leave the key and the value. And then in the body, you have to add the following. So I'm just taking care of what we have to replace here. So what we have to do is inside these 2 double quotes, you can pause the video and just check what I'm writing here. But in between these 2 double quotes, you just hop over here and the generated images you open, just in case if this is closed, you open this and you pick the ID here. So your command looks exactly like this. Please be aware there is a space in between here. And this is just the next line is public, and make sure to write this precisely as I did here. Then you click OK. So next up, we have to understand that Leonardo takes a little while to generate a motion file from a picture. So what we have to do is add the next module and look for tools. And then we simply say sleep. And in here, we can pick 90 seconds and hit OK. And just in case if you realize that Leonardo takes a little bit longer, you may want to experiment around with these numbers. If you see that it works below 1 minute or something, of course you can put in 60 or 70. If you think that it takes a little bit longer, move it up to like 100 or 120. Okay, so now it's time to grab this generated movie file from Leonardo and download it to your Google Drive. Please watch closely. This process is the last tricky one, I promise. So what you want to do is log into your Leonardo account and generate whatever picture. And then when you open the picture, you should see something like image to motion. You just have to do this once manually. And then after a little time, you should see a motion generated file like this. Now click share, copy video link. Now what I do next is I have a text editor open. You can use whatever you want and I will paste this link in here. You should see a link. And then of course, this is blurred out. This is my personal user's number here. And then you should see a /generations, then another /, and then you see twice the same number separated with a / again, and then .mp4 at the end. Okay, so now it's time for a little test to do, and this is also necessary at this time because there is one command that make can't grab by now if you didn't run this automation before. So let's do that right now. So here comes the first moment of truth. Let's do the following. Hop over to our document here and delete the hero prompt, the villain prompt, and the story again, and let it all run to this point. So now you can see it generates the picture up here. And once it generated the picture, it successfully made the API call to create the motion file. And now we have the trigger to wait for 90 seconds. So all of this seems to work 100% for now. Okay, so let's continue. We're almost done with this first step. The rest is just copying or cloning. We just have to hit the plus again. Now we have to add an HTTP model. Again, if you can't find it, type HTTP and you should see that here. Then you click get a file, and inside this URL field you have to copy the link from the manual video generation that you did before. So now please be aware that I deleted my user number here and replaced it with this is your user number. You have to replace this in between these two slashes here and put your user number in here that you should have from your received link. Now the next step that you have to do is delete everything behind generations slash. Please be careful that you don't accidentally delete the slash. You just want to delete this thing. And now also by running the test, we should have the necessary information in make that we now need. So if you now click here, you see body, then you see motion SVD generation job, and you just have to open this one and pick the generations ID. Then you write slash, then you have to hit generations ID again and write .mp4. This is everything that you have to do, and then you close this again here. Okay, so I promised this was the last tricky step, and then the next thing you have to do is add another module here. We pick Google Drive, and then we simply find upload a file. Now what we want to do here is we go to select from list, pick My Drive, map. You're not using any of this. You click map. Now you hop into this field, and what you do is, remember, we already gave the command to create a folder. So now we want to pull this information from here, folder ID. You can see this is also pulsating again. We say folder ID, and now we defined the folder where all of this information is going into. Then we say map again, and to name this file, we go down the list, we go down to our last Airtable entry, pick hero name, and simply write chapter 1.mp4. And then inside here, just in case if it doesn't exist already, we want to pick the data from here and hit OK. Now you understand all of these processes. Let's continue with chapter 2. The first thing, we go back to the router here. We click this little wrench tool. We say setup filter, condition, bundle order position. Now it's 2. Hit OK, click the plus and click create a completion here. Select GPT for O. Then we add a message, user. This is the only thing that we still have to do manually here. And as for the message content, you want to use the following. Read this text. Again, this would be the value from the iterator. We are now only processing information from chapter 2. We set the filter here. And this is what you want to type into. Then generate a visually detailed picture prompt on only the described location. Do not mention hero name. So we have to pick the hero name from here or any other characters. Do not exceed 300 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. Max token 0, hit OK. So now we can start cloning modules, and what we want to do here is right click this Leonardo module here and say clone, and just simply drag and drop it down, and you can see that it automatically connects. What you have to do now for every clone module is hop in here, and you can see that this is kind of like with a white background. You have to make sure to update it to this result, right? This is all you have to do. Then you hit OK. What you do here, right click, clone, you just drag and drop it down, it automatically connects again. Please be aware, this is a little bit trickier here. You want to delete this container, but then again, you make sure to grab this information from here. So generated images ID. That's it. You click OK. Basically, you do that all the time for all the remaining modules. Now here comes another important thing to understand. As you know, we were only able to set up this HTTP module when this information has been manually grabbed before. Now we also have to run one complete set manually, and then we get the information that we need inside make to pull this in automatically, right? So in short, what we do, we finish all the chapter first, to this point, and then we can take care of the rest. So let's hop over to chapter 3. What we can do here is right click and we click clone, and please be aware we still have to write the message content. So also you can see when I drag and drop this around and move this close to the router, it automatically connects. And this is what we want to do. We open this, but we want to put in another text. Let's delete this and replace it with this one. Again, read this text, which would be the value put in from the chapter 3 only, and then generate a visually detailed picture prompt on only the described location. Do not mention, again, hero name or any other characters. Do not exceed 300 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. I have to admit, for the next 1 or 2 modules, it's almost the same text, but I just want to get used to, because we have to manually take care of all of these chapters because they contain different commands and prompts, and I don't want to confuse you. Now you hit OK, and then we hop over to the filter. Please don't forget this. Setup filter. Then we say bundle order position equals to 3. Hit OK. That's it. Now, if you want to move several modules, you can hold down the shift key and select them and then move them up a little bit so you have a little bit more space available. We can also move this up a little bit more. And now let's work on chapter 4. So we simply clone this one again, make sure that it connects automatically, make sure that it doesn't connect anywhere else, right? We want to connect this with the router here. Then we hop into this. Set up a filter. You should be familiar with that now. Bundle order position. Now it's 4. Hit OK. Now open this. And again, even though right now it's the same text, I just want you to get used to the process. Read this text value, right? This would be only the selected chapter 4 right now. Do not mention hero name or any other characters. Do not exceed blah, blah, blah. It's the same, but we just want to make sure it's all manually correctly set up, so nothing goes to a wrong module and we get an error message later on. Hit OK. Now let's work on chapter 5. We clone this again, make sure it connects with this router. Just in case if it doesn't, you can grab this one here and connect it over to this router here. We open it and now we leave everything as it is, but we want to replace the text for chapter 5. Read this text. Again, we have to assign it to the correct value. Describe villain name as detailed as possible by using the exact information given here. Villain prompt. Do not exceed 300 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. Then you hit OK. So it's time to clean up a little bit. So let's hit this little magic stick here and say auto align. Now chapter 6 is a little bit tricky, nothing too special, but we just want to divide it into 2 things. The first one would be to focus on the hero. The second one would be the focus on the villain. The reason why we do this is because Leonardo is not really good with action or battle pictures where basically 2 characters are described. So we just want to do like a little bit of an action thing where we focus on one character in a fighting position and then the other character in a fighting position. So it looks a little bit like a conflict going on. So now let's clone this. So we have the settings available and we just move it a little bit over here. Make sure, be careful that it doesn't connect with anything else. You can grab this arm and connect it to this one. Open it and everything stays the same, but we just want to work on the right text. And this would be it. Generate a visually detailed picture prompt of hero name and use the exact same character description of our hero prompt. Do not mention any locations and only focus on the fighting character. Do not exceed 600 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. Right, so we basically say the prompt should be a close-up portrait in action fighting style. Again, you can always experiment around, try to come up with your own things, try to create your own chapters as you want. This is just the basic idea that should get your juices flowing, and then hit OK. So 2 chapters left. Again, let's hit shift, select these and move them a little bit like here to clean it up a little bit. Now we want to clone this again and we want to make sure that it connects with this router here. Then let's open it, delete the text in here, and let's take care of the text for this, let's say chapter 6b. Generate a visually detailed picture prompt of villain name and use the exact same character description of villain prompt. The prompt should contain elements of a fighting pose. Do not mention any locations and only focus on the fighting character. Do not exceed 600 characters and only focus on the prompt text itself. Do not add any prompt commands such as create or envision or generate. Only focus on the prompt text itself. Hit OK. That's it. Now something important that we almost forgot. So we stopped setting the filters at 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see that these are kind of like highlighted. Bundle order position 4. This is set up, but we didn't do it for this one. So at this point, we want to put in set up a filter, bundle order position 5. And please be aware what is happening right now. In here in chapter 6a, let's call it like this, we want to set up the filter for bundle order position 6. And then the same thing for this one, set up filter, bundle order position 6 again. The simple reason I did this is I don't want to get confused during the process. I don't care at this point if it pulls it from the story. All I want to have is to make the picture prompts right. Okay, now let's take care of the final chapter. We simply go to the last one. We hit clone. We just move it back a little and it most likely will not connect to the right place. So we just want to leave it into the great wide open, and then we just go over here and manually connect it. We make sure to set the filter up. This would be now bundle order position 7. Hit OK, and then we open this again. We delete the text and we take care of the right one. Read this text again. This is the value. This is basically taken from only the 7th chapter. Then generate a visually detailed picture prompt on the location and the reward. Do not mention hero name or villain name because I simply don't want to continue the battle or the conflict or describing the characters at this point. I only want to focus on the reward of this quest. Then again, do not exceed 300 characters, which is basically the text as with every other module before, and hit OK. Also, just a little reminder, always make sure to save your project. This is not like something like Word where you just type something and you leave the document and it's still there. If you don't save it, close the window, it's gone, right? So just always keep that in mind. So now I'm hitting that auto align button again. So we just have everything cleaned up and sorted out. Okay, so the process I'm doing now will apply to all the other modules here. So now I'm hitting right click, clone, make sure it's connected, go in here and make sure it's connected to the correct result. You can always verifying it by hovering over it and you see the pulsing animation. Then you hit OK. Then you repeat the same for the next module here. Clone, make sure it's connected. Go in here, hitting the right prompt, which is the result of this module. Hit OK. Now I'm doing this for every other of these modules. And now let's clone the next module. Again, you want to be really careful if you just clone it. It connects to the right other module here and you jump in here. And then again, make really sure to just only delete these two entries that are not correct anymore. And now pick the correct generated images ID. Then you hit OK and you repeat with all the other modules. Now the next step is pretty simple. You just clone all of these timers here. They all need to be set to 90 seconds because this is the time that Leonardo needs to finish the motion video. So you connect all of the other modules here too. I can do it quickly like this because there has to be nothing written or changed in here. Now we got this thing set up pretty quickly. We can hit auto align again to have it a little bit nice and tidy. And now we can proceed with the next step. So now at this point, we have to run the automation once because as I said before, with this HTTP module, it only gets this information when this process has run once for each of these modules here, and you can't clone this. So we just have to run this once and then connect the remaining modules. Now I want to repeat the process together with you. We hop over to our fantasy story creator sheet here, and we are going to delete the hero prompt, the villain prompt, and the story because we just want to make sure everything works perfect. And then at this point, I'm convinced that if we hit run once, it will work perfectly. Okay, I can see right now that all of the automations went through perfectly, which is fine. You can always see that by this little one up here in that bubble. If I zoom in a little bit and you can check what is going on, for example, you can click this one and then you see the output, the bundle 1, and the result, an endless expanse of golden desert sands shifting like whispers of time. So you can see that something has been generated here. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is checking our feed here in our Leonardo account. So you can see that it generated the picture for our hero. It also generated the movie file. Looks pretty cool. Then you got all the files for the following locations. Our villain here that looks a little bit more like an orc than a troll. Also the animation is pretty cool. And within the next one I did a little bit of a mistake because suddenly we have a female warrior, which of course wouldn't be a problem, but when we start the story with a main character or something, we want to make sure that it's still the same main character later in the story. So it would have been better to put into the hero description a male or a female fighter with long white hair to make sure all of the generated pictures and movies have a little bit of consistency. And also at this point, let's check if the Google folder creation process has worked. So as I said before, I have my Google Drive connected to my computer's hard drive. And since we run this test twice, we have one story of Arlas folder here and another one story of Arlas with a 1 in brackets. And if we just open this, there should be technically one file already in here, which would be the movie file of our hero animation. Great, so we know this works and now we can proceed with the rest of the automation. So now at this point we have to clone the HTTP module here. Please be very careful that it is connected to the correct next module here. And if I open this, again, instead of my key, you should see your key from Leonardo in here. And what we again do is just make sure we're not deleting the slash here. We just delete this one. And now this information is available here since we run this test. Open this up and then pick the generations ID. Then you have to do the same here. Make sure to not delete the point or anything else. Go in here and again click motion ID so it looks like this. Now I'm not going through this entire process again because you know how it works. Okay, so in the meantime I set up all the HTTP modules. The next thing that we want to do is clone the Google Drive here, clone it, make sure it's connected, open it, and then we can leave basically everything as it is. The only thing that you have to do is say chapter 2 for this automation and then hit OK. And also you have to make sure to connect the right data. You can always grab this and move this over here so you can see the data, and this is like the animation happening again, so you know this is the right one from this module here. Then you say data and then you hit OK. Now the next thing you do is clone this again, make sure it's connected. You open it again, you want to put in a new name because you always want to make sure that you're not confusing the movie snippets later on, and make sure it is connected to the right data thing here, just in case this one. And now let's continue with the rest. We're going to right click, clone, connect it, then make sure that we have the right name in here. So we want to put in chapter 4. You can write this however you want, and then we have to make sure to connect the right data, which is this one. Now we do the same thing again, clone, connect it to the module here, we open it, then we change the name to chapter 5, we assign it to the right data, hit OK. So what we want to do for the next module here, we just clone this and then we make sure it's connected to the right one here again, and then we write chapter 6A, for example, because as you remember, we have one part of the chapter that is focusing on the hero in battle position and then again on the villain in battle position, right? So we just have some kind of like a simulated battle or conflict going on. You can also write, for example, chapter 6 hero, then make sure it's the right data that is connected. Okay, clone it again. And then you say chapter 6 villain, for example, make sure it's connected to the correct data, hit OK. What we do next is clone this again, and now we can simply name this chapter 7 down here, and then we also make sure it's connected to the right data and hit OK, and we are done with this. Make sure to save. Now if you really got that far, you can definitely tap your shoulder because congratulations, you set up something that will save you tons of time. At this point, really quickly, because I made a mistake here on the last chapter 7 of the movie files, if you go in here, I forgot to delete the villain so that it doesn't confuse you with chapter 6, so you simply name chapter 7 chapter 7 without edit anything except the .mp4. Now we want to make sure to save this entire thing here again and hit auto align to make it nice and tidy. And the next part is optional, but if you want to have the voiceovers also created, just stay tuned, and I promise this won't take too long. So the first step again is we hit this plus here from this router. Please keep in mind that we have two routers going on. The first one led to nowhere so far, and then we have a second one that is splitting up all the chapters for the visuals, right? Now we want to take care of the audio stuff, the voiceovers. So right after this Google Drive command that we set up, or this Google Drive module, this router here, down here, you click this plus here, and then you set up again an OpenAI module, create a completion. First of all, we pick the model, we add a message, apply the user role, and then we just basically tell it this message here. First of all, we just have to make sure that it's getting the information from this result here. So what we're doing, we scroll down and we say result. You can see this hovering here again. So I want to delete this and put this in here. So this result is basically the generated story. We could also pull this from this Airtable entry because the story already exists in here too, but this is up on us. We just pick it from here. So we have it in here. So what is happening right now, read the story basically and provide a short version of each paragraph that isn't longer than one sentence. Again, separate each sentence with an empty line. Do not use any separators. What we then do again is say max tokens 0, and then we hit OK. And what happens next? We just have to create another iterator here. So you click that little plus, we pick the iterator from over here, and then again we do the same thing as before. We hop over here, split, then from the left of the semicolon we put the result in here, and then on the right we hop back to this little A here, and then we say new line and hit OK. Okay, let's continue. I'm shift clicking these two and just move them down a little bit because we need a little bit more space. And now what we do is again we send all of this splitted information into a router. So I'm picking this from over here. The first thing we do, we click the plus here and then check for the 11 Labs module. So we hit create speech synthesis, and then it depends a little bit on your account. If you have the free version, if you have the $5 account, or the professional version, you have several voices available. So in my case, I have a professional account because I really love Carter the Mountain King as a voiceover. Then we pick the 11 Turbo version 2, and then the text is basically the value, right? That is coming from this split short version of our story. As for everything else, we leave it like it is, but then keep in mind, I will zoom in a little bit. We have to hit this little wrench tool. We set up a filter, and then again, we say bundle order position is 1. So just to quickly recap why we are doing this, we generated the story here. Now we generate a shorter version of the story because the voiceover files would be way longer than 4 seconds for each of the chapters. Remember, 4 seconds is the duration of that video file, and we want to make the voiceovers match the video file, right? Now this shouldn't be too much of a problem here. We clone this again, and then we connect it to the next one here. Automatically happens, and then we can basically leave everything as it is because the value would always be defined by the filter. So we're just cloning these pretty quickly here. And now we got this set up. I would suggest to leave it like it is, because otherwise if you just hit auto align, you have trouble accessing these little wrenches here. So I'm zooming in a little bit again, and now we say set up filter. We say bundle order position 2, hit OK. We hop to the next one, set up filter, bundle order position 3, hit OK. We go to the next one, set up a filter, bundle order position 4, hit the next one, bundle order position 5, hit OK. And also, of course, you do that for filter 6 and also filter 7. So let's head to the next step. What we do now is click this little plus here on the first 11 Labs module. We pick Google Drive, and then again we say upload a file. Now what we are going to do here, we do not say enter manually or something. We say select from list. Then we click this little map thing here, and then remember we already created the folder, so we want to put the stuff that is generated in 11 Labs to this folder that we created here. So the folder location, we set this folder ID. You can see this is pulsating again. We pick this one, and then make sure to go to the advanced settings, and now we have access to define a new file name. And what we're simply going to do is scroll all the way until we see the last Airtable module, and we simply pick the hero name again, and then we can say, for example, voiceover 1. I'm doing in Roman numbers here, and then leave everything as it is and hit OK. So the next step, we can simply clone this drive here, make sure it's connected to this one, and then we can set the new file name, which would be voiceover 2. Just have to click this 11 labs thing here. It was set to map because probably something got messed in the process of cloning, but this looks all right. We say OK, just to check it real quick. This is how it looks like here. Voiceover 1, the file and everything. Voiceover 2, okay, we hit OK. Now we clone the same thing. It may be that it's happening the same thing here. And just in case if this happens, we just go back to 11 labs, the file, but we make sure that it's voiceover 3 right now. You hit OK, clone the next module, open it, set it back to 11 labs, and then you create voiceover 4 as for the file name, hit OK, then clone this again, hop in here, voiceover 5, then we hit this one again, hit OK, then cloning this again, open it, voiceover 6 as a name, and then back to file 11 labs, hit OK, clone, and then again we say file name voiceover 7, 11 labs, and hit OK. Wow, so basically that's it. Let's hit save button down here and then hit auto line, and now we got this entire automation set up from scratch. So to make sure that everything works, I have run another test. And what happened basically that sometimes files haven't been delivered completely. So you can see this file here, for example, with a size of 1 kilobyte. And if this happens, simply click these tools here and raise the time from, for example, 90 to 120. So this is what I did on all of these modules. I raised the time to 120 seconds. So basically the entire automation takes 8 times 120 seconds. So this is around 16 minutes, but please keep in mind that within this time you can do anything else. So it's not taking away too much memory or CPU power. So please keep in mind that when you raise the time, you do it on all the modules. It can happen that Leonardo servers are busy, and it could happen on any of these lines here, affecting any video. But after running another test with the increased time to 120, it processed every video correctly. So now you can see we have this created folder, story of Grolok. We have Grolok chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have the split chapter 6 into hero and villain. Then we have chapter 7. These are all the video files here. And then we have all the voiceover files from chapter 1 to 7. And now we can work with these. And now let me quickly show you how to do this. So just in case you never heard of Davinci Resolve, you can download it for free. I put the link down in the video description. Then move to this icon over here. And now you can import all of your videos and audio files. Simply drag them over here. Let's change the frame rate for now. Then we import all the audio files. And then we change it to list view to see the file names. Now what I would suggest is to drag and drop the audio files first into the project so you can see how long they are. Let's give it the first test here.
Grolok, a fierce barbarian with tribal tattoos and leather armor.
Sounds good. And what we can do now is drag and drop the first video into it and see the length different between the video and the voiceover. So there are several options now to make this fit, and there will be always a little bit of variation happening. You can of course cut out these rests here. What I would suggest is simply hop in here, go to speed change, and then increase the speed of the audio file so it sounds a little bit more like this.
Roamed the wilderness with a rugged battle axe.
So when you speed up AI voiceovers, it most of the time sounds a little bit more realistic. Now click the video, also go to speed change over here in the video settings and change the speed to round about 50%. And now you have your first scene over here. Please keep in mind that the numbers may vary for you. It's not always exactly these settings, but this is how our first scene looks and sounds like. You will also hear a messed up quality of the audio, but keep in mind that this will not happen when you render the video.
Grolok, fierce barbarian with tribal tattoos and leather armor, roamed the wilderness with a rugged battle axe.
Now we will go through that process for all of these videos here. So we simply put this up here to the next scene. We import the next video, slowing the video down to around 50%. Then you need to drag it out, highlight the audio, also apply something like speed change to 130 to make this match. And then the next scene sounds like this.
Rugged battle axe. He sought the lost catacombs, traveling through misty forests and cold mountain passes to reach an ancient entrance.
Now I will do the process for each of these scenes here, and please keep in mind that this is the only working time that you actively have to put into this. So you get your video and your audio files automatically generated within 16 minutes that you can use to do something else. Then once the automation finished, you open your folder, you import all the files, and then you actively work for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes to put these files together. So I will do that now. So here's our one exception. We have two files for chapter 6. So we are going to import the first one and also import the second one. And this will be both videos that we will need for chapter 6. So we just moved that in here and you can already see that it's kind of like fitting. And now let's take care of chapter 7. The last thing here, again, we just changed the video speed to 50%. You need to drag that open, just drag the file to make it fit. We just changed the speed slightly to 110, should work. Maybe let's do 115. And now we got our story set up. So all in all, this didn't take us longer than 3 to 5 minutes. So now it's up to you. You can use this video as inspiration to write music to it, or you can take an existing track and import it into the project. So in my example here, I drag and dropped in a track that I've already written. I just created a new audio track. Then you can jump over to the mixer here and of course lower the volume of that track. The great thing about Resolve is that you can work with VST plugins. So on our master, we want to have a mastering limiter. I'm importing the FGX2, increase the volume a little bit, set the ceiling level, the ratio, and raise the compression a little bit. I'm just doing that how I feel. We can adjust things later. And let's take a first listen on our final video here.
Grolak, a fierce barbarian with tribal tattoos and leather armor, roamed the wilderness with a rugged battle axe. He sought the lost catacombs, traveling through misty forests and cold mountain passes to reach an ancient entrance. Navigating dark corridors filled with whispers, Grolak moved through echoing halls, over broken pillars and artifacts. In a grand chamber, he found a shimmering pedestal amidst darkness, thick with mustiness hinting at secrets. Rulark, a figure in tattered robes, wielding a dark staff, confronted Grolak with malevolent intent and sorcery. Grolak deflected Rulark's magic and charged forward, their battle a fierce mix of steel and sorcery. Rulark was defeated, and Grolak claimed the Ring of Eternal Power, feeling its immense energy and heralding his future legend.
Again, as I said in the beginning, we are not trying to recreate Hollywood here. All we want to do is visually supporting your music that you're presenting out there, that you create content with, basically to make it a little bit more interesting rather than just offering an audio track that people can listen to. Now, if you have a little bit more time, that doesn't take too much time. I just want to inspire you with something that may even make this video cooler. You can import particle effects on top, for example, make it fit to one scene, especially for the battle stuff, then copy it, simply flip the second one here, then you highlight both, then you go down to the composite mode, change it to screen, lower the opacity a little bit like this. Also, one thing we still have to do is head over to the project settings here and say use vertical resolution and set it to something like 1080p. That is enough for this, and hit save. And now let's check out how this looks like.
And sorcery. Grolak deflected Rulark's magic and charged forward, their battle a fierce mix of steel and sorcery. Rulark was defeated.
So at this point, I want to remind you that if you want to get the blueprint, all the text and everything done for you, make sure to check out my course Content Automation in my Audio Artist Academy. You find the link down below in the video description. And once you get used to the process, it shouldn't take you longer than just 5 to 15 minutes to create an entire video like this. So there's one last thing that we can do also, and this is to add captions to the video. And to do that, you simply highlight all the voiceover files. Then you go to Timeline, create subtitles from audio, max characters per line, let's set this to 12 and hit create. And after a little while you can see that there are captions happening here.
Charged forward, their battle a fierce mix of steel.
So what we do now is highlight all of these, and it depends a little bit on your computer because this process can be really resource intense. You just head over to track. Now you can change the font, for example, use this one, change the color, change the size a little bit, and also you can change the position to put it a little bit more on top. If you want, you can also set a drop shadow, for example, or a black stroke around the font. And now let's take a last look on our video here.
Grolok, fierce barbarian with tribal tattoos and leather armor, roamed the wilderness with a rugged battle axe. He sought the lost catacombs, traveling through misty forests and cold mountain passes to reach an ancient entrance.
Okay, so if you made it until here, thank you so much for checking out this video. I would be really happy if you leave a like or even subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think about the fantasy story generator in the comments, and make sure to join my free Audio Artist Academy. Thanks so much for checking out this video. See you in the next one.